finish what I needed to talk about earlier. We're going to go ahead, get to the disclaimer, and we're going to go from there. So yeah, I don't normally go live 2 times in a day, but there was other clips I needed to go through and talk to you guys about. So let me go ahead, do my disclaimer. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I appreciate you all for being here for the second time. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged in our opinion and for entertainment purposes only. So yeah, this is part 2. There were some other clips I did not get to, so we're going to get to those. But yeah, you guys know me. I don't normally go live twice in one day. But there's a lot of information that's still out there. The commercial in regards to Mia. So we're going to go ahead, get to those clips. Like the videos, you guys come in, support the channel. Super chats are welcome. The memberships are over there. Thanks for tuning in for a second time to Let's Talk About It Media 21. We're going to get to some of these other clips. Some people are stating that, are all these witnesses, is it a purpose? Yeah, it's a purpose. Not everybody's situation is the same. There might be a certain thing that's a driving force. In regards to Mia was the girlfriend, and he's still paying her rent and helping with the lawyers. Not every situation is like that. And it's being reported, I think they're stating that she was added, I want to say in January or February, something like that. I heard that she was added. So what does that mean? That some people are bored, that certain situations sound very similar, but everybody has to tell their part. This may be building in regards to the relationship, the promises that were made and not maybe even kept. But the biggest thing is they were in a relationship. So let's get to the other videos I wanted to play. But I appreciate everyone for being here. I hope you can support the channel by hitting the like button, by subscribing. So we're going to get to the clips in regards to what we missed. If you missed earlier this morning, go check that video out later on today. I have to meet a certain quota in regards to my numbers. Today went pretty good this morning, but you know, I kind of wanted to go through some more things that was transpiring. So like the videos, you guys come in, subscribe to the page, and let's get to the clip in regards to Mia. Mia's been on the stand for a while. Cassie was on the stand for a long time as well. And certain jurors, I will say this, it's being reported, I can only state alleged, certain jurors seem very interested in regards to writing a lot of notes. And then after a while, they stop writing a lot of notes. Maybe because it's kind of like, okay, what else do I need to write notes on? These people were in a relationship with him. There were situationships. They stayed in a situationship, and they didn't get out until he would basically say, I'm done. I'm single. I don't want to do this no more. Does that make sense? That's what we're basically saying. Cassie moved on and got with Alex. It seems as if Jane Doe probably still would have been with Diddy if he wasn't arrested. And that's the interesting thing, that he is still paying up until this week. He was still paying her rent. And it's reported that Jane Doe really hasn't spoke to or visited Diddy in jail. So we're going to get to some more stuff. So Jane Doe's situation is kind of interesting.
Are trained on a courtroom in New York City where we are listening to testimony by somebody who goes by the pseudonym Jane, testifying against Sean Diddy Combs in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. So as a reminder, Combs pled not guilty to all 5 federal charges, but if convicted, he could face life in prison. So a lot at stake for this shamed entertainer. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Tarika Duncan. Always great to have you, Tarika. You're outside the courthouse right now, but you've been inside quite a bit as well. What have you heard?
Like the video, fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
Today, my friend.
So much that we heard today, starting with that testimony from Jane back on the stand and more details about the relationship that the two had. The defense, Tenny Garagos, starting off by establishing the fact that Jane met with prosecutors over 20 times since the beginning of the year, and also just saying that she was under no pressure to make any specific comments as it pertains to Combs, because we learned yesterday that Combs is paying for her attorneys right now. But they got into their lifestyle more and more. We know that Combs allegedly enjoyed watching his girlfriends, Cassie Ventura, and in this case Jane, have sex with other men. But we learned more details today just about some of the things that were happening. For example, Tenny Garagos asked Jane, do you still love him? And she said, I do. She talked about how they used to cuddle together and watch TV. Her favorite show, or their favorite show, she said, was Dateline, so that they watched a lot of television. She said that even in terms of the fetish that she described, she did research on it because she was trying to better understand what it was about Combs that enjoyed watching her have sex with other men. And she said,
why did he like her having time with other men? Why was that? Hi, I'm back for a second time today. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
She came up with this term called cuck, and even brought it to him. So you're seeing that the defense is laying out really sort of this timeline of events that show she was a willing participant, that she was getting financial help, that Combs was paying for her house, that she even at one point was able to get up to $50,000, she said, on Instagram by posting grants, and was also receiving $4,700 in child support, according to Jane.
What's the end game, do you think, from the defense as they look at all of this testimony? How are they going to use what is said to try to get their client off?
I think it's once again about the credibility of the witness, and also trying to prove that she was not forced into this or coerced into some of this behavior. In fact, there was a moment when Garagos asked her about taking an ecstasy pill, and she said that she felt as though Combs expected her to take.
And it's being alleged that people that's in the courtroom are saying they took that pill throughout the day. Almost alleged every 3 to 4 hours at times. The substances that were used is out of this world. Fair use reaction clip. Let's continue.
And then Tenny Garagos says, and by the way, how old were you when this relationship started? And she said 35. So you're seeing sort of the makings of building up to this person had some of the control as well. There was a moment just as we were wrapping up for break where she outlines 3 partners that Combs sent home because she didn't like them. She didn't like the way they smelled, or there was no connection. So again, sort of these strips of this wasn't as forced as, she says that these acts were when you listen to just her testimony yesterday with the prosecution.
Jerika Duncan, thank you so much.
Yes, there was a live yesterday in regards to Jane Doe did not like how a certain person smelled. These people, if they're not taking care of their hygiene, what do you think they're doing in regards to the health? That's concerning. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
The updates that we obviously have to filter for our national audience. We appreciate you always doing
that.
Yeah,
it's tough.
It is tough. And we can't talk about our assignments when we do this story.
That is CBS News where we got that. But for the person to have bad hygiene, and Jane Doe she just couldn't take the smell. That's crazy. You bringing people over that's not fully hygiene and clean, and you expect for me to spend time with them? Why is he having his girls do these FOs, some 2 to 3 different men, some 3 to 4 different men in one day? That's gross. Let's continue. There's no love there. There's no love there. Sorry. I hope no woman in this chat is being
Sean Diddy Combs today
in that situation
from an alleged victim who's keeping her identity protected and going.
Good afternoon, everyone. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 you've been here before, where you're watching from. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for saying hi, and thank you for being kind. I really appreciate it. I do see your comments. Super chats are welcome. There are memberships over there. Over here, we bring the TTT. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. Let's continue.
By the pseudonym of Jane. It's a 4th death stand.
Now, the jury did listen to audio recordings, voice messages, rather, that Combs sent to this alleged victim via text between November 2021 and August of 2023. Take a listen to one of those voice memos that was entered into evidence that was left in August of 2023, not too long before the Cassie Ventura lawsuit.
Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. I mean, you could be mad, I have a spat, we got whatever, then after that, you better get on your job. That's really, that's all it is.
He's telling these women that this is basically their job. Say what now? There are voice recordings that's being released that Diddy is telling these women to get on their job in regards to these FOs. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Cause you got me on my job. Nah, it ain't never gonna work like that over here. You know what I'm saying? I was trying not to leave this message, but you have left me no choice.
All right, joining us live from outside of that federal courthouse where there are no cameras, but we do have journalists inside. Court TV senior producer Emmanuel Grimberg is joining us. Emmanuel, let us know about what happened today with Jane on the stand for now third or fourth day.
Yes, today Jane began her cross-examination at long last, and it's kind of an interesting cross-examination. It felt kind of familiar or almost congenial because, as we learned yesterday and was confirmed today, Jane started talking to the defense long before she started talking to the government. Right before Sean Combs was arrested, she had plans to meet him in New York days before. They were very much together right up until his arrest, and he's even paying for her week.
Jane Doe and Diddy were very much together before his arrest. She alleged might have been the one that he wanted to be with the week he got arrested. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
He's paying for her lawyer. He's paying for her rent. But she told the defense lawyer, Teddy Garagos, today that is not affecting her decision-making, that she is here testifying because she wants to. And she said yesterday she wants to honor her truth. So from there, the defense has really gone into this idea of why she was in this relationship and why she stayed in it. And it's been that congenial tone, I think, is just reflected in the way that they are, the way Teddy Garagos is asking questions. She's really just asking her, to reflect back on a lot of her direct testimony. And her first question was, you said yesterday, or you said during your direct examination, that you regret some of the choices you made when you were with Mr. Combs in this relationship. And Jane said, I regret the lifestyle that he drew me into. And I resent the lifestyle he drew me into. And he drew me into that lifestyle through manipulation. She said, though, I still love him. Jane says she still loves Sean Combs, but she regrets the lifestyle that he led her into.
It's interesting. Teddy tried to draw her in there by saying choice, and it sounds like she caught that and didn't do it. Teddy, of course, Mark Garagos' daughter. Well, so how, at this point, Emmanuel, we've been bouncing back and forth between Combs and mainly Karen Reed here. Where are we, do we know, in the government's case?
Yeah, I think we could be nearing the end of its case in chief. In fact, last week, the government said that they felt that they could potentially arrest their case in chief by the end of this week. Now, that was before Jane took the stand later in the week than they anticipated. But still, that's kind of where they were. That's kind of what they were indicating, that they were ready to rest by the end of this week. So everyone at the courthouse now is just wondering and speculating, who could be next? Could it be one of these members of Combs' inner circle that we keep hearing about? Could it be one of the security guards? Could it be Chief of Staff Christina Coram, who went on some of Jane's vacations with Combs? In fact, Jane was testifying again today about how Christina Coram helped her when she was on.
Christina Coram is KK. That's a part of Diddy's team. She worked for Diddy, and I'm not certain. Does anybody know how long Christina Coram worked for Diddy? Once I find out, I'll put it in the chat. Let's continue, because KK did work for Diddy, but I'm not certain how long she worked for Diddy. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
A bad drug trip. Christina Coram took her into the shower and washed her off and helped her pull herself back together. Christina Coram also helped Jane smuggle drugs, or instructed Jane to smuggle drugs from LA.
That's the other thing. A man don't love you if he's asking you to struggle in stuff for him. A man don't love you if he's asking people to allegedly sleep with you. So she's getting advice allegedly from KK of how to get this stuff to Diddy, and so they can have a fun-filled night. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
To Miami at one point for Combs. So a lot of speculation about who could be coming up next before the state arrest.
The infamous Kate.
So that's the biggest question. Who's going to testify next? And how is it that a man, there's no way he loves you if he's asking you to bring him substances? And maybe he felt that his team wouldn't do it because where they were traveling. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip. So concerning. Hold on. Not that. Hold on. Fair use reaction clip. What do you guys think about Jane Doe's testimony? Okay.
And everything that happened in court today. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
In contrast to the aggressive, brutal style of cross-examination employed by some other members.
Information from Eyewitness News. Let's continue. Fair use. We're talking about Jane Doe, who is still on the stand, and she's being cross-examined. I'm wondering if today or tomorrow will be her last day.
Of Sean Diddy Combs' defense team over the last few weeks, Teddy Garagos, gracefully yet meticulously working to show jurors Combs' former girlfriend testifying anonymously under the name Jane was in fact a willing participant in the drug-fueled days-long sexual encounters with male escorts the couple called hotel nights, the core of the federal sex trafficking and racketeering case against Combs. Garagos asking, these hotel rooms, you could see it meant a lot to him. Jane answering yes. You would make the choice to take ecstasy. Jane responding, I would say that Mr. Combs would offer me the ecstasy and expect me to take it. Combs smiling and nodding as Jane described the end of the hotel nights when she would give him foot rubs, saying yes, he was my baby, and that she would love him, cuddle with him, bathe him. Garagos playing loving voice notes between the couple. Jurors hearing Combs' voice saying, hey baby, we had a great time. Stay in your light. You are the crack pipe. That's my new name for you, or should I say CP?
Could you imagine being called that? A substance? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. And hearing a departure from Jane's soft monotone voice heard during her 3 days of testimony and a bubbly voice note responding to Combs. Crack pipe is so real. I love being up under you. I'm getting so close to you. Everything just feels good, and I'm so happy. And similar to Cassie Ventura, the defense trying to paint a picture of a jealous girlfriend who knew upfront Combs was polyamorous, and especially upset when he started dating Carisha Brownlee, the singer known as Young Miami. What was hard for me was the imbalance in treatment. When I walked into the relationship, I just thought he was dating. It was definitely difficult when it became a relationship that publicly looked monogamous. I did not sign up for that. Garagos poking the tender subject for Jane of Combs' public expressions of affection on social media. You were upset you didn't get a Chanel bag. Jane answering, no, I only got trauma. But didn't you get a Van Cleef necklace and a Bottega bag? Jane snapping back, I'm sure you have one. Garagos asking, how much do Bottega bags run? Jane more sharply answering, how much does my body cost? Then asking to take a break. A matter of housekeeping, earlier this morning, before testimony began, the judge ruled on a mistrial motion from the defense. That was denied. Prosecutors also wanted to recall Dr. Don Hughes, the trauma expert. That was also denied. Tomorrow, court will be delayed starting tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m.
Our thanks to Darla Miles joining.
So court was delayed today till 1 p.m. Not certain if the judge had other things to do or other court things to deal with, but court was delayed today. So many people were wondering why certain people weren't live. So that's the reason it was delayed today. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Now by ABC News legal analyst Shauna Lloyd. Let's pick up right where we left off there with the witness on the stand known as Jane. That was an important moment in court, was it not? Because you had Tenny Garagos, the defense attorney. You described her as sort of mild-spoken. She's kind of softly asking these questions, and Jane snapped at her. And
Struggling to pay off your debt.
Like the video, like the video. Let's let the commercial go past. Like the video as the commercial go past. What do you guys think about Jane's testimony? It shows a difference. Well, it shows a lot of similarities to Cassie and, but then it also showed that Diddy was paying her rent and helped her with her business. Let's continue.
and the jury took notice.
Absolutely. The jury was paying attention. Everyone was looking back and forth because, Tenny's demeanor is very kind of soft-spoken. She's self-deprecating. She comes across very well to the jury. And suddenly, because she's questioning her about this text message that started out of jealousy, suddenly she started getting extremely snappy and rude. The judge actually had to admonish Jane and tell her that she has to answer the questions and that she can't ask questions back of the lawyers. So it was a pretty intense moment in the courtroom. So much so that she actually got up and said, I need a moment. And she actually exited the courtroom to gather herself. So that tells you the type of temperament she was in. And this was important for the jury because we have to remember the only allegation of physical abuse was an altercation at her home where she said that she hit Sean Combs' head into a marble countertop and then threw some candles at him. Then she said she punched him, he punched her back. So now the jury's actually seeing that part of her personality come out a bit more. So it solidifies it for the jury.
She actually apologized for the way she responded to Tenny Garagos after that brief break. We also heard from Sean Combs again today. What was that like to hear the messages between the two?
It's interesting because, it's odd to hear someone in the courtroom like that, but especially if he doesn't testify, this becomes his voice in the room. This is the first time the jury's really getting to hear his voice. They were messages that we heard between the two of them that were mostly loving, very kind of typical dating. I had a great time. I can't wait to see you. Let's get together. And so we heard his voice talking to her throughout that. And they had a lot of voice notes along with the text messages to corroborate what was being conversed about.
What were the biggest wins for the defense today in the cross-examination?
I think the biggest wins for the defense were that they really tried to hammer home this idea that there was no force or coercion. The prosecution has been putting forth that the home she lived in that they said was $10,000 worth of rent that he was paying was why she was in fear of not wanting to participate in these hotel nights. Well, the defense was able to get out the fact that, one, that happened almost 2.5 years into their relationship. The purpose of the home was so that the way they could get out of the public eye for these specific nights with these escorts. She said she wanted privacy. She wanted somewhere they could relax. And so that is why they started looking for the home.
So, of course, after his raid, they allegedly stayed low-key from the hotels. Let's continue. Fair use. That's what's being reported. Once he got raided, they tried to allegedly stay away from the hotels, and they would do different things at different locations versus they were kind of low-key from the hotels. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
So they brought out her income. They talked about the fact that on Instagram she could make $50,000. She was receiving child support. She had a thriving swim and a dress line. So the idea that if he stopped paying your rent, you wouldn't be able to was really not as clear after the cross-examination today. And I think that was very important. The other thing that they brought out was that they really talked about her and the escorts. The idea that she called herself, Sean, and one of the escorts a trifecta and that she was really excited and had a personal relationship with the escort, it really speaks more to willingness. Even the text messages that we shared where she initiates or wants to partake in one, the jury really paid attention to that.
And it's interesting because then the prosecution wanted to bring back the trauma expert maybe to rebut some of those types of behaviors, and the judge said no.
Yes, the judge said no. You had one bite at the apple. They were there. You should have talked about all the types of relationships, because they also wanted to frame Mia's testimony to say that this can actually occur in a workplace relationship where there is no romance. But the judge said no. You knew who you had testifying. You knew what witnesses were coming up. You should have elicited that testimony at that time.
So what happens next? Tomorrow the cross-examination continues?
Correct. The cross-examination continues. Garagos has indicated that she expects to be done by Thursday, so we expect to have Jane off the stand by Thursday.
And she's been on for so many hours now. How does that play in the room, especially when you had such an emotionally charged experience today?
You know, it's interesting. I think this gives that dynamic. They actually get to see.
I said the same thing. If you're making that much from Instagram, why would you not continue? Why would you be begging a man for $10K a month and paying your rent, and then you had credit card bills? I would have stayed with Instagram. I felt that same way because Diddy was always also doing his own business thing. So why not stay doing what you're doing, making your own money? That didn't make sense to me either. Fair use reaction clip.
Her personality develop, because let's remember, witnesses do wear down over time, and you start to see their real demeanor, not what they've been coached for, not what they've been, told to kind of display. So we're starting to see that. The other thing is she's a very important witness, because let's remember, Cassie's relationship was 11 years ago, right? So we're talking about a relationship that was very fresh, very new.
Up until the point he was arrested.
Exactly, and so that brings a lot of color. And where is it now? Because we all know that things can occur in our past, but what are you doing present day? And so she provides that color, and so the jurors are paying rapt attention.
Also interesting, we noticed yesterday that he is still paying for not only the rent for this home that we talked about, but also the attorney fees for her personal attorney.
Exactly. He's been paying her attorney's fees since he was indicted, and they came to her home to talk to her. He's also been paying the rent for what she says is now 3.5 years. So this idea, and when asked on the stand, do you feel as though he's tried to coerce or ask you for anything back? She was very clear. She said, no, absolutely not. So this, again, takes away that idea that this was force and coercion or something he was holding over her head.
Just a couple more. Where do we stand in this?
There's nothing like making your own money, period. Even if she did that an hour a day, Diddy wasn't with her all the time. She should have been making her own money, stacking and saving for when the relationship break up, and then he goes his way, you go your way, you still got money stacked and saved. Maybe he didn't want her posting like that, but she should have. And that's interesting. This is not the first time that it's being reported that someone walked away from what they were doing. Diddy wanted them to focus on business with them. There was another person that testified that. Remember? It wasn't just this person. So it's almost like he wanted your focus to be solely on him, and you never know what you're going to feel like after a FO, but still, there's so many hours in a day, you still could have been making your own money. Real talk. Women, learn something. Mothers, teach your daughters different. There's nothing wrong with you making your own money, getting your own bag, and not deal with a guy that's trying to push you off on other men. Why? Who does that? And this is the biggest thing. In Hollywood, we're not hearing too many guys other than the swinger life. So maybe he's making her feel like a lot of people in Hollywood is doing the swinger life. Maybe that's what he was telling some of these women, because I'm just not getting it. Like the video. Press 3 if you're new, where you're watching from. Press 3 if you're new, where you're watching from. Press 5 if you've been here before and where you're watching from. Because we've heard other celebrities allege have a swinger life. Maybe that's how he felt that the women would feel, but I don't know. And it's random people, and they're not protecting themselves. That's the gross part about it. And then after they release, then he wants to play in the sloppy seconds. It's just gross to me. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Right now, we're in it every day. We talk about the
it's concerning
in it every day because you're there in
and
court.
gross
for the public. I'm talking to some friends of mine. I'm talking to people who maybe were fans of Sean Combs before, or are just disgusted with the types of behaviors that they've already witnessed with the video of the attack in that hotel. But they don't even know where to place the charges that he faces, and that's kind of what we're down to.
How not to pay off your credit card debt. I owe $20K.
See, and this is the biggest thing. I don't know if they're stating. I'm trying to remember if he was paying Cassie's bills too. It's a general breakdown of him paying her bills and paying her attorney fees.
The charges that he faces, and that's kind of what we're down to. a lot of people say he is, and even the defense said, he's not a great guy when it comes to, obviously, violence against Cassie Ventura and some of these other things he's accused of. But is he guilty of the crimes that he's charged with? That's the challenge for jurors right now, right?
Absolutely. That's a challenge for most people that I speak with, the people I interact with in the courtroom, the public that's allowed to be in there. That is the struggle because everyone understands. And as you said, the defense admitted it. Some of his actions towards Cassie were indefensible. They admitted that. He is not a great person. You're going to hear things that you don't like. And that is what we're finding out. But the question is he guilty of the charges? One, RICO, which is the conspiracy with others to continue this criminal enterprise, and those underlying predicate acts. And then the trafficking. Were these women actually trafficked through force or coercion? I think that the witness today, Jane, it really got very muddled because she seems to be a very willing participant. Unlike Cassie, we know that she was under physical abuse and other things. This witness doesn't seem as though she was unwilling. She admits that she consented to take part in these things because she wanted to keep him happy. So underlying charges, I'm not sure I'm seeing all of them. The transportation for prostitution, I do think that they will get a charge on that. The others, I'm not seeing it yet. And we have to remember, we are close to the end of the prosecution's case in chief. They are due to be resting by early next week.
So finally, for this conversation tonight, if you are, let's do both sides. If you're the prosecution, what do you need to do to finish up your case in a strong way?
If I was the prosecution, I'd be hoping, and I really do hope, that they have a bodyguard or some other person that's going to tie all these events together. You want someone who's seen both aspects, the relationship aspect and the work aspect, so they can speak to the dynamic and how it was interrelated. That's really what they need to do because they've shown little bits and pieces, but you need someone who's going to tie it all together. Now, if I'm the defense, I'm looking to combat that entirely. I'm really trying to break down, which is what they're doing, break down each witness one at a time. Because we have to remember, reasonable doubt is not one specific thing. It's a number of things that amount to something that makes you feel like, I'm not sure. This could be something else. And if they get that feeling, then that is the reasonable doubt that the defense is looking for.
More to come. As always, Shauna, great to have your perspective.
Every testimony is helpful, period. That was Eyewitness News. Every testimony is helpful because being in a relationship is one thing, but having to be with people you don't know, and then some of the women are calling people that they've done the FOs with, but still, it's a lot. I don't know. It's a lot. Mothers teach your daughters different. Talk to your aunts, talk to your mothers, talk to your nieces. Make sure they're not getting into this kind of situation.
It's now live outside the courthouse. And Aaron, this was the third day that Jane has been on the witness stand. Did we learn anything new today?
So today would be the fourth day.
Well, it's the first day under cross-examination, and it was sassy and spicy at turns. The jury saw long exchanges of text messages where the defense was trying to show that Jane was a willing, maybe even eager participant in the kind of sexual lifestyle that Sean Combs was.
Hello, everyone. Can you please hit the like button? If you're watching from a phone, please double tap the screen to hit the like. If you're watching from a phone, please double tap the screen to hit the like. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 you've been here before where you're watching from. Let's continue. Press 1 if you're watching from a phone. Please double tap the screen to hit the like. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Pushing, and they saw occasions when she would text Sean Combs about nights they could get slutty together, where she's making the arrangements with the male escorts.
Hello, Los Angeles.
Sean Combs, what she wants to do with those male escorts. It was pretty raunchy stuff. Jane says in those moments she was only trying to make Sean Combs happy because she knew that's what he wanted to hear. But it is a different side because on direct examination, Jane said that she did not want any of that to occur. She only wanted to have sex with Sean Combs.
To use your words, Jane at one point got real sassy and spicy with the defense today. Why?
Hello.
Jane, as the defense attorney, Teddy Garagos, was trying to highlight what she had gotten out of the relationship. Because remember, she had said that it made her feel evil, like an animal, like a porn star. She was repulsed. She was disgusted. And then Teddy Garagos says, yeah, but you got a lot of gifts, didn't you? Did you get a Chanel bag? And she looked at her and said, no, I only got
Hello, DMV. And then the Jane Doe says she got trauma out of the relationship. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
What about a Bottega Veneta bag? And she sort of recoiled at that and said, well, sexual lifestyle that Sean Combs was.
Yeah, on the stand, Jane Doe got a little spicy and kind of snippy with the cross-examine. She was holding her own, just being like, don't ask me silly questions. They were like, what does this bag cost? She was like, you probably got one. What does my body cost? So let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Pushing, and they saw occasions when she would text Sean Combs about nights they could get slutty together, where she's making the arrangements with the male escorts, where she is telling Sean Combs what she wants to do with those male escorts. It was pretty raunchy stuff. Jane says in those moments she was only trying to make Sean Combs happy because she knew that's what he wanted to hear. But it is a different side because on direct examination, Jane said that she did not want any of that to occur. She only wanted to have sex with Sean Combs.
To use your words, Jane at one point got real sassy and spicy with the defense today. Why?
And it came as the defense attorney, Teddy Garagos, was trying to highlight what she had gotten out of the relationship. Because remember, she had said that it made her feel evil, like an animal, like a porn star. She was repulsed. She was disgusted. And then Teddy Garagos says, yeah, but you got a lot of gifts, didn't you? Did you get a Chanel bag? And she looked at her and said, no, I only got trauma. What about a Bottega Veneta bag? And she sort of recoiled at that and said, well, you know what that's like, to the defense attorney. And Teddy Garagos kind of shot back, no, I don't. Well, what's that cost? And that's when Jane looked at her and said, it cost, what does my body cost? And it was a moment where the judge had to remind her to just answer the question, but she showed some fight after a number of hours on cross-examination where she was effectively accused of being...
Thank you so much for the $5, Queen. I really appreciate you. You're my first one for today. I got 20 yesterday, so I appreciate your $5. I really do. Someone had asked who Jane Doe is. I'm not certain. If the courts are saying it's a Jane Doe and the Mia was anonymous, we're keeping as that. I don't want my page to get in trouble. If these people are to be anonymous so they can testify, they're anonymous. When you go on different sites, people are assuming different things. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny. I'm not in the courtroom. If they're to be anonymous, and if I was to be the one that's taking the stand, and if I'm to be anonymous, I'd want to be able to stay anonymous. I'm not certain who she is. The courts are the courts are getting on people if you're telling stuff you're not supposed to be telling. So I do thank you for asking me that question. I can't confirm or deny who she is. My page is a little different. We try and keep things on the up and up over here. So, people were trying to say who alleged Mia was, and that got out. And we're surprised that that person's not even taken out of the courtroom. But you got to be cautious. When the courts say something, that's what you have to follow. I'm not certain who Mia is, and I'm not certain who Jane Doe is. For safety precautions as well. But thanks for the question. And thank you for the $5 again, Queen. I really appreciate you for the 5. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
In it for the money and the gifts and the 5,300 square foot house in Los Angeles instead of the 1,400 square foot apartment she had been living in before Sean Combs started paying her rent.
Was there anything that stood out to you about the defense's questions to Jane?
I think it was pretty straightforward. And Teddy Garagos actually had a kind of nice rapport. Remember, Jane said that she was meeting with defense attorneys as recently as 2 months ago before she opted to stop communicating with them and testify for the prosecution. So she and Teddy Garagos knew each other. Garagos made a point of saying as much at the outset, and they seemed to have a light banter until that moment where they started talking about luxury handbags, and it got a little more tense, and Jane asked for a break. But I think the whole goal was to show that Jane never really resisted what Sean Combs wanted her to do. She said she didn't want to do it on direct examination, but there she was in text message.
Yes, Queen, tell them. Tapping that screen is free. Hit the like button, you guys. It really supports the channel. Hit the like button. It's just a double tap. Thank you, Queen. You own it today. I appreciate you. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Just talking about getting down and dirty with these male escorts over and over again.
Aaron Katersky for us there at the federal courthouse. Aaron, thank you so much. Let's dig into today's cross-examination of Jane, criminal defense attorney and ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villanova is here to talk us through this. Okay, what stood out to you today?
So let me tell you, in terms of Jane's testimony today, literally it was night and day. Jane became a completely different person. Of course, they always ask, how does a witness do? You don't know how a witness does until they're on cross-examination. So today the defense was able to flip her by saying, making her a defense witness. So we saw her through direct examination. She was crying pretty much 50% of the time during direct examination, looking down at all times, never looking at the prosecutor when she was asking questions. But here, the defense, when they were cross-examining Jane, completely different story. She was looking directly at the defense attorney, at Teddy, and also she was answering those questions. But they were able to flip her in the sense of getting a whole bunch of yes and no answers, and getting to actually agree that Sean Combs was a good man, going at the character, making her a character witness without even calling her on their own case. So in terms of the cross-examination, what really stood out, the one catty moment that Aaron just mentioned, because literally it looked like Teddy got under the skin of Jane today, to the point when she mentioned was how much does my body cost, or talking about that bag, I'm sure you have one. Literally all I thought about was cat right here. So she asked for a break. After 20 or 30 minutes, we came back and they ended the cross-examination for the day. But let's go into those text messages, how the defense...
Yes, yesterday she had asked for a break, and they were probably about to end with maybe an hour to go. But, when the judge feels that a person that's taking the stand needs a break, he'll allow a break. People were like, why are y'all taking a break now? Y'all probably only got about an hour or 30 minutes to go. But if she needed a break, she needed a break. Because they probably wanted her to say, hey, calm down. We can see you're getting a little snippy. and you're asking them questions. How much does a bath cost? You probably have one. How much does my body cost? So she's being snippy on the stand. And I think this is one of the first one that kind of got snippy. I don't think Cassie got snippy. Cassie seemed to be open, honest. It's like, yep, I did it. Yep, I did this. Yep, I was in love with him. Yep, I sent him that message. Cassie was like, yep, I'm going to stand and I'm going to tell the truth because you're not going to get me to allege lie on the stand, but allege. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Was able to make Jane their witness on the case. So one of the text messages, I love when we will make love, and said he wanted me. He would say things like he never wanted to leave, and so many loving things. Remember what I said, that the defense was able to make Jane a character witness for Sean Combs. They were able to bring out so many good moments. Like
She was even saying today that she still loves
exactly, like he's not a monster. Like he was a good man. He cared for me. He asked about my feelings and what I needed and how I can help. Like this is the type of man he was. But you know what? The defense had an advantage here. The reason is because remember the defense is paying for her legal fees, but also the defense was able to meet with her multiple times before the trial, so they knew what type of witness they were getting and what those answers would be and how to actually approach this witness during cross-examination. So let's go into some more text messages. Text message. We had just done so many hotels and privacy was just starting to become an issue for me. If we got a home that was to his taste level, we could just start doing them here in the privacy of our own home. Again, going to that home, the rent that was being paid by Sean Combs. And now look, he was willing to give her everything and to take care of her. Again, taking away that force, fraud, and coercion away from the prosecution and making it seem like this was all consensual. A huge problem for the defense, for the prosecution.
We also have to talk about this trifecta.
Oh, yes. So this trifecta, this really stung when it came for the prosecution because Jane was actually talking about a specific night, a hotel night, that it was so perfect, that it marveled her, that it shook her to the core in the sense of how happy she was, that she felt like this was a perfect mix for the three of them, where Jane was the late, great Kobe Bryant, where Combs was Michael Jordan, and where Paul, who's Sean Combs' personal trainer, was Shaq, and that the chemistry between the three was just amazing. Again, it's not sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion when you have this trifecta effect when you're talking about the sex, the hotel nights that they had engaged in.
Bernardo, we got a lot more to talk about.
So
You don't go anywhere. Still ahead, inside the legal strategies for the prosecution and defense, and why who allegedly asked Jane to bring drugs on a plane could be the key to proving the charges against Diddy. We'll be right back.
Yeah, that's
Facebook
concerning.
keeps trying to take this post down.
That's concerning. A man that you're dating is asking you to sleep with others and bring substances. That's not love, y'all. That's not love. Let's continue. Fair
She
use.
was also promoting
Reaction
that were
clip.
profitable to show that she could actually afford her own lifestyle. Therefore, the home can't be held over her head. Then we saw them move into the hotel nights. When we talked about the hotel nights, the drugs, she talked about how she felt great on them, how she had they had wonderful love-making sessions. Then they moved into this idea that she actually had much more control over these escorts. She chose the escorts. She had the ground rules for the escorts. They couldn't do drugs, and she has to choose them. And so they were really breaking that down to say that she was a willing participant, saying that she wanted to participate in these slutty nights and that she wanted to invite them over and buy a movie projector so they could rewatch these events. So that's really what they were doing. And the last thing that they did that was phenomenal was they got under her skin. This whole idea that she and Sean Combs had this physical altercation, we saw that spice in her. We saw the ability to get very kind of attitude and temper. And that's what they wanted to do because they wanted her not to appear as Demeanor. And I think they succeeded today.
I'll slow it down a little.
It was a bit damaging. However, remember that the prosecution is going to be able to come back on redirect. But also, you have to remember that the Jane that you're seeing today is not.
Our page goes really fast over here. So we get the information, retain the information. My page, we don't do a lot of repeats and going over, and we go fast over here. So you got to be able to keep up over here. And let's talk about it, Media 21. Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Not the Jane that was in these hotel rooms back in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Here we're in 2025, and she's in therapy now. She's talking to a therapist. Like, she's now understanding that how Sean Combs had manipulated and had control over her, and that she wasn't able to say no. So in terms of, is it working? When it comes to prosecutors and putting on witnesses, you take your witnesses as you get them. You take your victims as you get them. So yes, they all have baggage. Jane has baggage. Cassie had baggage. Every witness who stepped forward had some kind of baggage. And you're not trying to clean it up for the jury. So you're going to present to the jury at the end, like, look, this is who Jane is. This is exactly who Sean Combs preyed upon because of who she is and who she was during those years. So they'll be able to explain it. It's going to come down to closing arguments, of course, and they're going to be able to do it during cross-examination.
But I think even though they're going to rehabilitate her, as Bernardo said, the problem with it is that she's looking back. Hindsight is 2020. She even admitted that although she's in therapy now and realizes that she should have vocalized the part she didn't want to participate in, she also has already acquiesced that she did want to participate. She did not want him to, in his attention and his affections, to turn elsewhere.
But the problem is that the defense, the problem that they have is that there's strength in numbers. So if you put Jane and also Cassie together, you have that pattern. Had this been a case just about Cassie or a case just about Jane, then yes, the defense will have a stronger case. There would be reasonable doubt. But because they put both of them together and you have the sprinkle of Mia there and Ivana there and of the other witnesses, it's a different story for the defense.
when you talk about the victims, the alleged victims in this case, you have two of them. Some of their stories are the same, some of them are different. What are you hoping that the jury, as the prosecutor, what are you hoping the jury takes away from that?
So what the prosecution is trying to do, and this is why they bring that racketeering conspiracy, this is why the feds love that charge, because you're able to bring in so many bad acts. You're able to bring in that pattern. You're able to look back years ago, 10 years in the past, and bring all these bad acts that the defendant allegedly engaged in. So the prosecution is hoping that the jury sees that, look, Jane's story, well, I kind of believe it because Cassie has a similar story, or Cassie, I believe her because Jane also has a similar story. Like, this is not something that's being made up. They corroborate each other. Two women that don't know each other giving the same story, to the point that even during direct examination yesterday, Jane said when she read Cassie's lawsuit, 3 of those pages were like she was reading her own story. It was identical to what she went through.
Shannon, who do you think, does the defense need to call any witnesses? Do you think they're going to put on
Absolutely,
a case?
they're going to put on a case, because what you really have is that you have someone who we've already established has done these reprehensible acts. Some of the things that the jury is going to be inflamed about, he's not on trial for, and that's what is really important about this. His sexual preferences and what he liked is not what's on trial. What happened in the elevator shaft is not on trial. So what they're really looking at is the RICO and breaking that down. So they are going to bring witnesses. I expect to see someone either that was a supporting staff, a personal assistant, a bodyguard, to speak to the fact that although they were present, they were not aware. And that is something else the defense got out on the stand today, is that they did not and were not aware of what was happening at these hotel nights or the freak-offs.
Shauna, Bernarda, thank you both for being with us.
Okay, you guys, this is my second live for today. There was a few videos I didn't get in the first live. I had some business to take care of. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you, Queen, for the $5 super sticker, super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate you guys. I wanted to bring you guys these last 4 videos. Mia was on the stand, cross-examined. She may be done by Thursday. So I appreciate you guys. If you missed the video from this morning, great numbers. You guys were hitting the like button this morning. But please, there's about 54 in the building. We had almost, 5,000 to 6,000 this morning. So this video may get like 3,000. So like the video, subscribe to the page. I appreciate you guys for being here and supporting the channel. We're doing big numbers over here, big time. So my page 9 to 10 months ago had like 3,000 subscribers. We're almost at 38K. So I appreciate you guys for being here, supporting the channel. I support you. I thank you guys for hitting the like button, and I appreciate you guys if you subscribe. So, copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1971. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships, and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purpose only. Make sure you focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Have a great day, everyone. I appreciate you being here. And hit the like button as you go out. Have a great day. Goodbye. Be blessed. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Queen, for your assistance and help today.